Your ability to stand from a chair without using your hands may be the single most reliable predictor of how long you'll live, and it all begins in your glutes. When we pass the threshold of 50 years, something shifts in the architecture of our bodies that deserves our attention and our respect. The gluteal muscles, these powerful masses of tissue that form the foundation of our posterior chain, begin to undergo a transformation that medical science has documented with both precision and concern. We lose approximately 1 to 2% of our muscle mass each year after this age, a process called sarcopenia, but the glutes experience something even more profound because they are muscles we have, in many ways, forgotten how to use. Think about the hours you spend sitting each day, the chairs that have become our default position, the cars and couches and office furniture that keep our hip flexors shortened and our glutes in a state of dormant amnesia. This is not merely about aesthetics or vanity, though our culture often reduces the conversation to such shallow waters. The gluteus maximus, the largest muscle in the human body, along with its companions the gluteus medius and minimus, form a triumvirate of power that determines whether you can rise from a seated position, whether you can climb stairs without gripping the railing, whether you can catch yourself when you stumble on uneven ground. These muscles are your body's answer to gravity itself, the biological mechanism that keeps you upright and mobile in a world that constantly pulls downward. When researchers examine the link between muscle strength and longevity, they return again and again to functional movements that require gluteal engagement. The simple act of standing from a chair without using your arms to push yourself up becomes a diagnostic window into your neuromuscular health, your metabolic resilience, your likelihood of maintaining independence into your 70s and 80s and beyond. The glutes do not merely move your legs backward or stabilize your pelvis during walking. They serve as a metabolic furnace, tissue that burns glucose and maintains insulin sensitivity in ways that protect against diabetes and cardiovascular disease. They create the foundation for bone density in your femurs and spine through the mechanical loading they generate during weight-bearing activities. When these muscles weaken, a cascade begins. Your gait pattern changes, throwing stress onto your knees and lower back. Your balance deteriorates because the fine-tuning mechanisms that keep you stable have lost their primary anchor point. Your confidence in movement diminishes, and with it, your willingness to engage in the very activities that would preserve your strength. This becomes a spiral, a feedback loop of decline that feels inevitable but is anything but. The human body possesses a remarkable capacity for adaptation even in the 6th and 7th decades of life, even after years of neglect. Your nervous system can relearn motor patterns, your muscle fibers can hypertrophy and regain contractile force, your connective tissue can strengthen under appropriate progressive load. The glute bridge appears deceptively simple when you first encounter it, lying on your back with knees bent and feet planted firmly on the ground, yet within this humble position lies a movement pattern that can restore what decades of modern life have systematically dismantled. When you press through your heels and lift your hips toward the ceiling, you are not merely contracting a muscle. You are reawakening a fundamental human movement called hip extension, the ability to drive your femur backward relative to your pelvis, a motion that propels you forward when you walk, that powers you upward when you climb, that allows you to lift objects from the ground without collapsing through your spine. Consider for a moment the geometry of sitting, how your hip angle closes to 90 degrees or less, how your hip flexors on the front of your body shorten and tighten while your glutes lengthen and fall silent. Hours accumulate into years of this position, and your nervous system begins to forget the opposite motion entirely. Your brain loses the neural map of how to fully extend the hip, and compensatory patterns emerge where your lower back hyperextends to create the illusion of hip extension, where your hamstrings take over work they were never designed to do alone. The glute bridge interrupts this pattern with elegant simplicity. Because you are lying supine with your spine supported by the earth beneath you, the movement isolates hip extension without allowing your lumbar spine to arch excessively and absorb force it should not bear. The biomechanics work in your favor here. As you lift, your gluteus maximus fires concentrically, shortening to bring your pelvis and femurs into alignment, while your hamstrings provide assistance without domination. Your core musculature stabilizes your ribcage and prevents anterior pelvic tilt. Even your adductors on the inner thigh engage to maintain proper knee tracking. This is not a single muscle working in isolation but an orchestrated symphony of tissue learning to communicate again. For those over 50 who have experienced back pain or hip discomfort, The glute bridge offers something precious, a way to load the posterior chain progressively without the compression forces that come from standing exercises performed before the foundation has been rebuilt. You can begin with bodyweight alone, focusing on the quality of the contraction, the squeeze at the top of the movement where you pause and feel the glutes working against gravity. As strength returns and neural efficiency improves, you can place a weight across your hips, gradually increasing resistance in a way that stimulates muscle protein synthesis and bone remodeling. The beauty of this exercise extends beyond its muscular benefits into the realm of proprioception and body awareness. When you learn to initiate the movement from your glutes rather than your back or hamstrings, you develop a kinesthetic intelligence that transfers to every other movement in your life. You begin to feel which muscles are working when you stand, when you walk, when you reach. The step-up returns us to a movement as old as human locomotion itself, the act of ascending, of lifting the body against gravity using one leg while the other follows. Our ancestors navigated terrain that demanded this capacity constantly, climbing over rocks and fallen trees, ascending hillsides, and escaping danger by moving vertically through their environment. Yet somewhere in the flattening of our modern world, with its elevators and gentle ramps and predictable surfaces, we have lost touch with this unilateral demand, this requirement that each leg must be capable of bearing and propelling our entire body weight independently. When you place one foot on a box or step and drive through that heel to lift yourself upward, you create a biomechanical scenario fundamentally different from bilateral movements where both legs share the load. The glutes of your working leg must generate force not only to extend your hip but to stabilize your pelvis in space, preventing it from dropping toward the non-working side. Your gluteus medius, that fan-shaped muscle on the side of your hip, activates intensely to maintain level hips, a function it performs thousands of times each day during walking but with far less demand than what the step-up requires. This is where the magic happens for those over 50, in this combination of strength and stability that bilateral exercises alone cannot fully address. Each repetition teaches your nervous system to trust a single leg again, to coordinate the intricate timing between gluteus maximus driving you upward and gluteus medius holding you steady. The quadriceps of your front leg work concentrically as your knee extends, but unlike a squat where both legs push simultaneously, the step-up prevents compensation patterns where a stronger side can dominate and mask the weakness of the other. You cannot hide imbalances here. If your right glute fires weakly compared to your left, you will feel it immediately in the quality of the movement, in the wobble or the need to push off hard from your back leg to generate momentum. This diagnostic quality makes the step-up invaluable for identifying and correcting asymmetries before they manifest as injury or altered gait patterns. The height of the step becomes a variable you can manipulate to match your current capacity and progressively challenge your system. A lower step allows you to practice the movement pattern with good form, building confidence and neural efficiency. As you grow stronger, raising the height increases the range of motion at your hip, demanding greater gluteal activation and creating more metabolic stress that signals your body to maintain and build muscle tissue. Beyond the muscular adaptations, step-ups restore something psychological that matters deeply as we age. They rebuild your confidence in navigating the world, in trusting your legs to carry you upstairs without hesitation, in knowing that curbs and steps and uneven ground do not represent obstacles but simply terrain your body can handle with competence. There exists a muscle on the outer surface of your hip that rarely receives the attention it deserves, yet its function determines whether your knees track properly, whether your ankles remain stable, whether you can walk without pain radiating through your iliotibial band or feel your hip collapse inward with each step. The gluteus medius lies beneath the broader expanse of the gluteus maximus, a smaller but critically important stabilizer that controls frontal plane motion, the side-to-side movement and stability that keeps your pelvis level when one foot leaves the ground. In the biomechanics of human gait, there is a moment during each step when all your body weight transfers to a single leg, and in that instant your gluteus medius must contract forcefully to prevent your opposite hip from dropping downward, a phenomenon called Trendelenburg gait that becomes increasingly common as we age and these muscles weaken. When the gluteus medius fails in its duty, a cascade of compensatory problems emerges throughout the kinetic chain. Your knee may cave inward into valgus collapse, placing enormous stress on the medial structures and accelerating cartilage degeneration. Your IT band tightens and becomes inflamed as it struggles to provide stability that the hip abductors should be managing. Your lower back works overtime to keep you upright, leading to chronic pain and muscle fatigue that feels mysterious until you understand its origin in hip weakness. The lateral band walk addresses this precise vulnerability with targeted simplicity. You place a resistance band around your legs, either just above the knees or around the ankles depending on your strength level, and you step sideways against the resistance while maintaining a slight athletic stance. The band tries to pull your knees together, and your gluteus medius must fight to keep them apart, to maintain proper alignment as you move. This is not a large dramatic movement but a controlled deliberate action that isolates muscles many people have never consciously activated. The beauty of this exercise for those over 50 lies in its accessibility and its specificity. You need no heavy weights, no complex equipment, just an inexpensive band and enough space to take several steps in each direction. The resistance can be adjusted easily by choosing bands of different tensions or by changing where you place the band on your legs. Yet despite this simplicity, the neural demands are substantial. Your brain must learn to recruit motor units in the gluteus medius that may have been dormant for years, rebuilding the mind-muscle connection that determines whether these fibers will contract when needed during functional activities. As you walk laterally, focusing on keeping tension in the band and preventing your knees from collapsing inward, you are essentially reprogramming movement patterns at a fundamental level. The proprioceptive feedback from the resistance teaches your nervous system what proper hip alignment feels like, creating a reference point that begins to transfer into your normal walking gait. Over weeks of consistent practice, people often notice they stand differently, walk with more stability, feel more confident on uneven surfaces where lateral stability becomes paramount. The deadlift and the Bulgarian split squat represent the culmination of gluteal training, movements that demand not only muscular strength but coordination, balance, and respect for the body's changing capacities after 50. These are not exercises to approach casually or without progression, yet when performed with attention to form and appropriate loading, they offer adaptations that extend far beyond the glutes themselves into the realm of systemic health. The deadlift, in its essence, teaches you to hinge at the hips, to load your posterior chain while maintaining a neutral spine, to lift objects from the ground using the powerful muscles of your legs and glutes rather than the vulnerable structures of your lower back. This movement pattern has profound real-world application. Every time you pick up a grandchild or a bag of groceries or retrieve something that has fallen, you are performing a variation of this fundamental human motion. When executed properly, the deadlift creates a mechanical load through your entire skeletal system that stimulates osteoblasts, the cells responsible for building bone density, offering protection against the osteoporosis that threatens so many as they age. The weight moving through space generates forces that signal your bones to strengthen, your tendons to thicken and become more resilient, your nervous system to recruit high-threshold motor units that might otherwise remain dormant. The Bulgarian split squat takes the unilateral demands of the step-up and intensifies them by elevating your rear foot, creating a lengthened position for your hip flexors while forcing your front leg glutes to work through an extended range of motion. The balance requirement alone activates stabilizing muscles throughout your core and standing leg, while the loading can be progressed by holding dumbbells or a barbell that challenges your entire system. What makes these exercises particularly valuable after 50 is their hormonal impact. The way that lifting moderate to heavy loads triggers the release of growth hormone and testosterone even in aging bodies, hormones that support muscle protein synthesis and help maintain the lean tissue mass that determines metabolic rate. Without progressive resistance training, the body tends toward sarcopenia and the gradual accumulation of visceral fat that drives metabolic dysfunction. These compound movements reverse that trajectory when practiced consistently over months and years. Yet they demand wisdom in their application. The body at 50 or 60 or 70 is not the body at 30, and attempting to lift with ego rather than intelligence invites injury that can set back progress for months. Starting with lighter loads, perhaps even with just bodyweight variations or elevated deadlifts that reduce range of motion, allows you to master the movement patterns before adding significant resistance. Recording yourself or working with a knowledgeable coach helps identify technical flaws before they become ingrained, spinal rounding or knee valgus or forward weight shift that compromise both safety and effectiveness. The progression should feel challenging but never reckless, stimulating adaptation without overwhelming recovery capacity.